I'm Heather,
And I'm Amy.
and this is Ever So Clever Conversations with Amy and Heather.
And this is episode number 22. And Heather and I are more than double that. We were just laughing before we started. And the theme today is really about our perspective is a career superpower, being empathic or highly sensitive. Mm-hmm. And Heather and I came to having these conversations through phone calls where I said, or we said, we think other people want to hear these. And we recognize that we're in some turbulent times, and helping empaths and highly sensitive people thrive is our goal. So we hope these conversations help you think about things differently and see yourself in a different light, or understand yourself to know, oh, I'm not so alone. So today we'll be talking about that, about career and how that really is a superpower for us in our life, our perspective. I mean, it really does shine a light on something others can't see.
For sure. Well, and before we share like our own personal experiences, I was reading on online. I think I can't find the article, but maybe I can share it. But it was talking about this man who discovered he was empathic, but through his childhood, he was different and had some bullying issues and experiences that weren't very great. But then when he discovered he was an empath, he used that experience or his empathy and his perspective to help create or work with marketing companies that made commercials, so that he could say too, how are you appealing to your client? He could feel it and sense it in such a different way that other people could. So he was really using his empathic empathicness as a superpower, and they were seeing it as so. So he was getting paid quite well to come in and, show these marketing companies, this is how you need to appeal to your people.
Right. That's amazing. I'm kind of jealous because I'm
right? I was like, that's awesome.
I know. That makes me like, what am I doing?
Right.
With life. Absolutely. I mean, we've probably mentioned this on another episode, but the other piece is in Japan, I don't know, and I can't track the information, but years ago, I read or heard about that in third grade, they recognize kids who are empathic and highly sensitive, and they see that as a bonus and a boon, and they start cultivating this in them in a really good way, so that because they know it gives them a really big edge in business. They can sit there and listen to somebody and say, they're not shooting straight. They're not actually going to deliver on what they're saying, or whatever the situation is, because of that high ability to read the patterns and understand the feelings and the emotions going on, the facial cues and all the subtleties that other people miss. So it is a superpower. And we think of it as like, oh, I got to hide out because we also can be highly introverted. Even the person who is highly sensitive or empathic, who's quite outgoing, still needs, I believe, downtime to resettle. And the reason is because we process at such a high level, or we feel these, emotions at such a deep level, that we need time to just let those kind of brew out of us, or to process all the things that we've experienced. I know I was writing something recently, and I was thinking about, I noticed all these subtleties in some people in my family that nobody else could see, and I'm sure of it. And then later in my life, I came upon these other patterns that I was like, oh, I got to go check that out and check this out. And all of those things I saw these people do came together like, oh my God, they already knew this. Oh my God, they never articulated. So it's quite profound to have this ability to see how things go together. And you'll be guided down the right pathway to see those things. We have to somewhat say yes as an empathic or a highly sensitive, which we often want to say, no thanks, because why get in the fray, right? Which is something in a job, we have to be honest. I mean, Heather and I have talked at length about making connections that are lasting and important connections with other people. And that holds true, especially in America this week, that's Thanksgiving, where we might be interacting with family, hopefully via Zoom, and staying away from each other to some degree, or whatever's safe. But that is, I lost my train.
Well, we were talking about being connected. So even if you're with Zoom, were you going to talk about something?
Well, I don't know, with the career, but that we are, we'll follow that path. And maybe that was it, is saying yes a bit more to the opportunities ahead of us and knowing that we can manage those, even though it might stretch us a little bit. Every single human on earth chooses something that creates fear for them, or they have to move through that whole ability of being able to experience things that are in our pathway, whether it's a job or a boss or so on, also teaches us how to sometimes not look at the boss and try and outrun them and figure it out, but instead hold that boundary and say, this doesn't work for me, or no thanks, or just recognize it for yourself and work among what does work for you in that career environment.
Mm-hmm.
But we really are aware in a meeting, we don't realize how much ability we have to listen to everybody. And we actually can say the very profound thing at the end because we can sum it all up. And I know you probably have done that many times in a group or so on. And then people are astounded, like, how did you come up with that? You're so wise. You're so, well, you are. And yet what wisdom is created from is observation. And that's what you're the ultimate observer, because you're taking in all of this information that other people don't have access to. So it really is, your perspective is valuable. Just like this guy. That's a great example, Heather.
Yeah. Well, and just like you're saying, when you are in a meeting and then you wrap up, I know sometimes when I was just starting my career, I would be the one sitting there not saying what I thought I should be saying because I didn't feel confident in that either. And, looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have said more because I could see see things happening or see what we should be doing. But I was like, oh, I don't want to speak up, so eventually, if you don't feel comfortable, you're going to get to that place, hopefully, where you do feel that you can speak up because you do have, like Amy's saying, you have this wisdom, this different perspective that people do want to hear. And it can be scary at first to start to speak up. And I know, Amy, I think you have said too, like practice with maybe people you are comfortable with and knowing that or having someone in the group have your back. So when you do speak up, somebody's going to have your back because our voices are really needed and we should be able to share. But I can totally understand when you're not ready or there's some fear holding you back.
Well, yeah, I mean, this comes to mind for me. I am that way to some degree. I think I become more that way of being quiet in a meeting. But when I was younger, I worked in a creative environment and I would override the meeting and make it funny. And then I'd be like, okay, well, we're done with that. And so if somebody else tried to make a joke on top of my joke, I'd be like, no. So in another way, I bet that my sense was we needed levity because we were dealing with tons of money and we didn't have much money. I mean, it was a nonprofit, so it was like trying to figure out what's the best use, how is marketing not going to bitch at us? I mean, just all these things. And I think it was like, let's liven this. And then I could kind of get us back on track. So nobody ever said to me, there was never a take back. But I think it's because I didn't let it go on. And it wasn't about me being like, look at me. It was more about, let's be silly and bring this back to a ground level of being human. And then let's not let anybody else do it. I mean, to be sillier, and then we get back to it. And then it would get serious and yucky again, and we'd get like stuck. What are we going to do? And I'd bring levity, right? So, I mean, there are also ways if you have more, like I'm an outgoing introvert. I really need that time by myself, but I will ask anybody anything. I'll be like, how did you get those blue socks? And it's the president of the United States. No, I'm just a curious person. It's gotten me in trouble, but not much. So, I do think that we do know, and it will often be well received if within, it's like for me, that wasn't about me. It was about creating for others, but it was about me expressing that. So when we know those things, it's actually really appropriate to push into it because they loved it. I mean, they really got into it. And it is important. We need to speak up. And we are a group of people who tends not to speak up. We tend to be quieter and second guess ourselves only because we're processing so many things. We're like, maybe what I'm getting, the 90% that I'm getting that's saying this, that 10% isn't exactly saying that. That's how altruistic we are when we have the information already.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking too, when I led a networking group back a few years ago, but I led it for about 4 years, and people would come up to me and be like, you are the most amazing leader. And I never thought of myself as someone that would lead anything. I was one of those really quiet, shy kids and never wanted to even raise my hand. So then to be leading a group of business women, entrepreneurs, was way out of what my, I thought I'd be doing in my life. But people would come up and be like, you are so good at this. And I think what it was is I was so highly aware of everyone in the group and what everyone needed. And whenever, when someone needed to speak or didn't want to speak, or all of a sudden I'd walk over and do something because I noticed it needed to be done. No one had to tell me to do things either, and I was one that always knew who needed to step up into a different role, or because we just have this whole vast, perspective and emotions and things we can see happening around us that others are so like tunnel vision. Not all others, but quite a few people are so focused on just the immediate situation and tunnel vision. And we're like way out here, all over. And at the end of those meetings, they're, 2 hours. When I would get home, my husband knew like she's not going to cook tonight. I usually needed a nap because it just took so much more energy out of me to lead those meetings because I was so aware of everything, right?
Wow, that's incredible. So he kind of could see that was like too much for you.
Yeah, I think he never really knew the reason why, but he just knows like, okay, Heather's leading that today. Because afterwards there's chit chat and, and I'm very present with that, with everyone, anyone that wanted to talk or connect. And, but the downfall that I noticed was I put everyone first. So if someone was like, share about your business, I let everyone else share first. And if there was time, then I would go. But often I wouldn't share. So it really wasn't helping my business grow because I was supporting everyone else. So it's that whole putting everyone else first as well that you have to be careful about.
Heather, I was just going to say that when we were talking about it, that I would do all of the things you're saying to some degree, but then I would not come home and take the break. Like I would keep going. And I think I've denied myself and I can do that to a deep degree, right? Like I can handle a lot of that, like too much taken away or too much loss of power or whatever, and still power on. And I think that's a real cautionary tale for us as empathic, highly sensitives, because we do give a lot and we can feel guilty too, I think, because we aren't often pleased with, like, I think in a career, somebody who's highly sensitive may constantly wonder if they're in the right career because they're constantly looking for more challenge, for more observation, for more growth in different ways. And if it becomes the same patterns and observations, it becomes stagnant for them. So in a way, I think that we are people who we kind of feel complacent when we're like, where's that contentment of, but then we might move to a new place and be elated because we have a higher level of emotion. And then it becomes this kind of complacency quite quickly because there's this adeptness at sizing it up. And the emotional piece, I think also, there's that piece of communicating clearly with people in your work environment so that you know where you stand, because you can get into that loop of, is that what I'm feeling from them? She kind of cut me short. Like it can become this sort of confusing place. And we both highly sensitives and empaths really need people to shoot straight and say what they mean. This doesn't work for me, and here's how it'll work better, in a gentle, connecting way. And that's not necessarily always how our work environment works out. But we do make really good leaders. We do make really good bosses. Exactly for that. We'll see what isn't done and go and take care of it, because we aren't about that ego, like, well, I'm the boss and I don't do that work. We're more about the harmonizing of all people. And as a result, we make awesome leaders. Because we don't see ourselves as higher, right? We see ourselves as equals.
Yes, so true.
I mean, actually, probably empathic and highly sensitive people should all be the bosses of the world.
We should just run it all.
Well, can you imagine if you had a CEO that was thinking about everybody, how different the environment would be? But we want like this. So that's a superpower, that the bosses you've had that are this way, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't sound fair. Let's take a look at that and see what we can do, versus stop crying, right? I mean, which is a reality for some of us when we get overwhelmed. It's like, we can't process anything more. It's not that we're weak. It's we just can't shove any more pie into our pie hole. No more pie.
Comes out our eyes.
Exactly. Ah, that's making me laugh and cry. Okay,
Right.
so let's see. We can make good negotiators. We've talked about this before. Good leaders, good bosses, because we're not bossy, is what I wrote in my notes. We're not bossy. And we can see a problem very easily and solve it strategically and really consider everybody. I mean, that is a superpower, you guys. Think about it, right? If you went into a business and you said, hey, the way you're presenting that marketing is totally way off for your client. If you're trying to reach this person, here's how you do it. And it's like, it hits. Who doesn't need that? I just heard about this woman in Wisconsin who does this testing where she has you read things from when. Now I shouldn't be telling this because I'm not even sure. I don't even know if I can find the note of where she is, but she has you test as though you were your child, your child self, and answer these questions. And then she has you do it, and I don't know how she gets you to do it as the adult that you are, and sizes up the two responses, and it creates this profile of your personality. But the reason it's done is not for like a Myers-Briggs to say, this is what you should do for work. It's to do things like use wording to write resumes, so your own resume, so that when you apply, the people see the attributes of really who you are, and they would be attracted to that because those are their needs. I mean, I was like,
Wow.
this is incredible. This is exactly what empathic people need, because we tend to overjudge and be like, did I say that right?
Yeah, right. Right.
And in
So
truth,
much.
this is giving us a succinct way to really display how we feel and
Uh-huh.
how we think and how
Yeah.
we behave, so that the company's like, I don't like that person's the way they've said this. But somebody else is like, that's exactly who we need. Isn't that powerful? I mean, that's the
So powerful.
benefit of today's world. It's like
Yeah.
pretty off the rails. Um, so we preemptively see needs too. If there's a pattern going on, we can see something in a company and say, that is not going to work out in 6 months. Do you see this problem? And they'll say, well, and they can make a choice about that, an informed choice about what we see. I have a story about an empathic, highly sensitive who is, and I think it would be okay if I share this, but I'll just say it kind of generically, did not do well in school, could read a book and write a book report, but couldn't do art and these things. It seemed very strange to the teachers. They didn't like it because they're like, how can you not make this piece of art? How can you not do these things? And they'd fail the kid. And the kid somehow muddled through, got their undergraduate degree, but they graduated. I think the mom told me with like a 1.9 GPA from high school. So how they got into undergrad and graduate school and so on, but they went, all the way, not to a PhD, but through their master's degree. And they got a job working for the government, and they could see preemptively something that was coming that was bad. And they told the government, they said, this is a red flag, like this is going to happen. And nobody listened. And then it happened. Gave him an award, and now they listen to him. They're like, what do you see?
Right.
Because he can see this country's going to war, or this thing's going to happen, and you're not ready. Like, you got to get your. So I think that there's some room for this culturally, because Americans don't value it. They see us as other things, and we believe that. So then we think it's not valuable, and it's extremely valuable, right?
Right. There's a comment. Can you see it, or should I read it, Amy?
Yeah. I got it up.
Read it.
Okay, so I was having a conversation the other day, and we were discussing that there are two types of empathic people. One that can walk into a room and shift the room based on what they are feeling, and a second that takes on the feelings of others and is drawn to those feelings. I am more the second type, and the conversation led me to be able to identify that this is an opportunity to reach out to those in the room who are hesitant to speak out, by being able to approach them on a more in a more individual way. Right. Exactly. What is the opportunity within it? And that's exactly right. Is there are energy harmonizers, like everybody needs this energy change to be humorous and get back to the levity of being a human and how ridiculous it is. And other people do need that individual contact. And I think, Heather, that's what you were doing as a boss, is looking as an individual to these people and saying, what would they be best at, or how would that work really well?
Well, and it's so funny because even at that time, I didn't know that I was an empath or highly sensitive person. That's just how I functioned, and so when I'd get that compliment, I was like, oh, I'm really good at this, but I didn't understand the whole whole reasoning behind it. And when you understand it and you realize who you are, it kind of makes more sense. And then I think you can honor it in such a different way, and it feels even more true. And knowing that, yes, I did need a nap. It wasn't just me being lazy or I'm tired. It was, now I understand why I did need that rest. Or so I just knew it was who I was and how I was. But when you hear words and you connect with empath or highly sensitive person, it does just, for me, I think for many people, you just go, oh, you have like these aha moments of, now a lot of things made sense in my life, or why I behave. Or so I love what that person is sharing. We can't see your name just because you didn't give StreamYard permission, but thank you for sharing that comment for sure.
Yeah, it's a profound one. I mean, it absolutely. And actually, I mean, I think our time here is coming to an end, but
Yep.
we have a Patreon account where Heather and I are working on writing bodies of work to further this information for others to consume and to understand more about the highly sensitive and the empathic person. So in our deeper conversation, that's a part of our membership on Patreon, we'll be furthering this discussion and talking about, actually, I'm going to give an example from a job I had about that exact thing, harmonization that goes beyond what I shared before. So if you're interested in that, or that is something that you feel would be a win for you, join us on Patreon. The link will be there. Heather will share that.
Yep, just did. And I was going to share more about how I noticed in my family, both sides of my family, we have entrepreneurs, like generations of that, and why I want to explain why I believe that is to be true.
Can't
so
wait.
right? So I'm going to talk about that in our deeper conversation as well. So thank you for joining us today. And whenever you watch this, it might be at a later time. So thank you. And our next conversation next week is conversation 23. And I know it's around perfectionism. Is that right, Amy?
Oh, you know what? Hang on one second.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sleeping with the twist.
And the empath, I think.
It is perfection. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And you guys, I just want to add in there that I have on my business page on Facebook, it's Amy, the Intuitive Pathfinder. But there I do daily readings of the energy, and I do a weekend synopsis of what's happening. So if you are interested or curious about how you're feeling, your emotions are way off, it's a great way to tune in and see, oh, I'm not alone. You're probably feeling the energy that's at hand. So take a peek at that when you get a chance, or if you need that support, head there.
And then also, I was just talking about perfectionism in my Facebook group and a little bit on the page, but in the Facebook group, and I'll put a link to that, I get a little bit more deeper, and people interact more in there. I think they feel like it's more of a safe space. So if you're not a member, I would welcome you to join us in there as well. So Empath Mama group is our private Facebook group. So we will put the links in there for those two things. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.